Art.
We are continuing to track developing news at KSL NewsRadio. Utah death row inmate Ralph Menzies will be put to death. A judge signed a warrant for his execution today, despite his lawyers arguing that he was not mentally competent. Joining me now live is KSL legal analyst and co-host of Inside Sources, Greg Skordas. And Greg, first of all, what's your reaction to the judge's decision this afternoon?
Well, it's not surprising, Maria, because they had a very, very detailed hearing, an evidentiary hearing, a couple months ago, where they had experts from both sides come in. I think the hearing took the better part of a week, and the judge made some findings on it. Now, apparently the most recent motion filed by Menzies' defense is that his mental health condition, his dementia, has deteriorated, and it's worse than it was at that time. But the judge, I think, has said, look, I've considered everything. I've heard from the experts. We're going to go ahead with this. You said at the outset that he is going to be executed in September. That may or may not be true, because I'm certain that his attorneys will take an appeal from this ruling today.
Menzies has chosen death by firing squad. Is that still the way he would be executed? Is that on his death warrant?
Yes, it is. At the time this occurred, we had a strange kind of law in Utah that allowed a person who was convicted and received the penalty of death to choose their manner of execution. And we had, as at that time, the choice between firing squad and lethal injection, and individuals were allowed to pick which one they wanted. Most people didn't chime in or make a selection, so they would get lethal injection. But he chose the firing squad. And so that's the method that he will be executed by.
His execution has been set for September 5th. That's about 13 months since the last execution of Tabor and Honey. Before that, it had been like 14 years since the last execution in Utah. What do you make of more frequent executions now? Is it just a fluke?
Yeah, I think it's just a fluke. There are only a handful of people on death row, less than 10. And they have all been on there for quite some time. Prosecutors in Utah are pretty circumspect, Maria, with respect to the kind of cases that they choose to make a death penalty case. They don't overcharge that. It's not like some states where you're seeing executions every month or something like that. In Utah, every 5 or 10 years is probably what you'll see. The fact that this one is so close on the heels of the Honey case is just a matter of coincidence, and not anything to make you think that our Department of Corrections or our prosecutors are doing more death penalty cases than before.
You mentioned that you expect an appeal. What would his attorneys appeal on at this point?
Whether or not the judge made correct findings and used the correct standard when he decided that Menzies was competent to proceed. There were experts that testified from both sides, and so the Supreme Court will take a hard look at whether or not the judge's ruling was based on the law, based on what was appropriate at the time. And now they've got a new issue, which is this new motion that's filed that alleges sort of an additional level of dementia, and the Supreme Court's going to have to weigh that as well.
So remind us, if this does go forward, how the actual execution will take place.
Well, they'll have it at the prison. Now, the new prison is different than the old one, so they used to have an area where they would do the firing squads. I don't know, since they moved out to the new prison, whether they have a yard for that, but I'm sure they'll create something like that. They have a group of people that are that carry rifles, and some of them have live rounds and some don't, it's just like you see in the movies. It's a pretty bizarre act, but it's something we still do in Utah.
All right, Greg, thank you so much for being with me. And that is KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas talking about the execution warrant that was signed today by the judge for Utah death row inmate Ralph Menzies. And again, Greg does believe that his attorneys will appeal this.